welcome back to the channel. So today something a little bit different. I'm checking out the Action Force line from Valaverse, specifically the Desert Rat character. So this is actually a figure that has a little bit of a backstory. This guy here, Mr. Tony Roberts, he is a YouTuber and an ex-SAS member. When it comes to British military, it doesn't get much more badass than that. He actually put me onto this range, funnily enough. He was endorsing the figures a while back on his channel Analog Toys, and I actually passed it at the time because I wasn't really into the classifieds or any of those figures. I was really only into the Masters of the Universe Origins, but now I've gone back and I've picked them up, and I actually got this guy directly from the Valaverse website. I can't remember exactly how much I paid. I think it was around $35 US, something like that. So the price is really fair. But I have to say, immediately when I saw this, I was impressed because they've gone for that nice colour scheme that the old Palatoys had. If you're not familiar with Palatoys, they had the Action Force range before Hasbro purchased it back in the 80s. And growing up in England, I did actually have some of the Action Force figures, not many of the Palatoys version. I did have some of the G.I. Joe / Action Force versions, and these were a little bit before my time, but it's really nice to see that colour palette, and it really does pop. I'm almost just very tempted to leave it in the packaging. It just looks so nice, but no, I've got to get it out. I've got to have a look and see what these figures are all about. So taking a look at the packaging, so Desert Rat on the side here, 0207, I believe that's Wave 2 or Series 2, Character 7. And on the back we have some others: Rollout, Trigger, Sergeant Slaughter, the second version of Sergeant Slaughter, Duster, the Scarab, and then the Garrison Cavalry, and then the nice bio card here. And then some action points down the bottom. Not really sure what those are going to be for. It could just be a callback to the original Action Force line that had something similar. Or maybe we keep them and we actually do get something from Bobby Vala in the future. Anyway, let's open it up and take a look. Okay, so here is Mr. Roberts, aka Desert Rat, out of the packaging with all of his accessories. And before I get started, I will just say I'm very impressed with the actual packaging. So he came in this clamshell, but it had this very nice cellophane cover over the top. This reminds me of something like an SH Figuarts or a Mayfix, which is a slightly higher end 12 scale figure. That's really nice that they have that. You don't see that in the classified. So taking a look at the accessories, he comes with heaps of accessories. He comes loaded out with accessories as well as extra accessories in the packaging. So starting off, he comes with a heap of hands. So 2 fisted hands. I wish that all 12 scale figures came with fisted hands. This is a great touch immediately. He comes with 2 holding hands. These look like maybe rifle holding hands. And then 2 cradling hands. He also comes with additional trigger finger hands which are on the figure, and then he comes with a sidearm. Now straight away I've noticed with the accessories, the plastic seems to be a stronger material than I've come to get used to with the classified figures. This feels much more sturdy. It feels like a harder plastic. This is just matte black, but it's a very nice piece indeed, very nicely sculpted, and it just feels like a higher quality. And then we have his assault rifle. Again, same sort of design here, very nice. It feels like a sturdier material. The paint applications are really nice. The sculpting is very good, very impressive. The magazine doesn't actually come, oh, it does come out. Wow, look at that. The magazine actually comes out too. Now that is neat, that's really cool. And then also he comes with this backpack. Now something which I wasn't really aware of, I came across this by accident, is the backpack actually has this opening compartment. So you can just take it off and store your accessories inside. That is an ingenious idea. So simple, but a great idea. And the actual backpack itself is really nicely done. It's a tougher, solid plastic, and it has this really nice sculpting all across it, a nice dark olive green, very nice piece. But then there are accessories already on the figure. So he came loaded out with a combat knife actually on his jacket, very nice piece there. 2 additional magazines, and then he also has this, looks like a medipack on his leg there. Now this, I guess you could count it as an accessory because you can actually slip it off over the leg. Also, he has a stand. Now, when it comes to the stands, this is something else. I was just so impressed with this. So simplistic, but just give us stands. I really struggle with my classified figures. Half of them don't stand up. And the irony is, these figures don't actually need the stands. They're that well designed that they just stand up without a stand at all. However, it's really nice to have that. And it is a solid plastic piece. Action Force stamped in, this steel sort of patterning, and then at the back I believe that's for the bio card if you want to display your figures with the cards, and then 4 pegs for the feet. So just fantastic accessories, really well done. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the actual figure itself. I just can't get over this figure. I am familiar with what Tony Roberts looks like. I subscribe to his channel, Analog Toys, and I have to say that they have nailed the sculpt. It is spot on. It looks exactly like him. Check out his channel. His content is just really good. He tells it how it is. He's just a joy to watch, and I've actually communicated him very briefly. He pointed me on to some Origins figures and also the Valaverse figures. He's a nice chap to deal with, especially for anyone in the toy community. So having a closer look at this actual figure, I'm just frothing. It's just gorgeous. It really is super impressive. Now, I grew up in England in the 80s, and unfortunately we had the conflict with we had the Gulf War, but also we had the Falklands, and I remember seeing these sorts of soldiers on the television quite frequently. So for me, this is exactly what I picture when I think back to seeing those guys over there. The Union Jack on his jacket there, but also the colour scheme, it's just spot on. They've absolutely nailed it. In terms of realistic, I'd have to say this is a 10 out of 10. Now, I don't know much about combat terms and so on, so I'm probably going to butcher a lot of this, but I'll do my very best. Taking a closer look, he's actually got multiple accessories. So this, as I said earlier, is a separate piece. This is, I believe, a medical pack, and something which I've noticed is it actually has these double straps, which I believe is more realistic than having the single straps which we've seen in some of the classified figures. He also has his combat jacket, and this is also a separate piece. I guess you could snip it and take it off if you wished. I'm not going to do that. It looks fantastic on. And then also a combat belt. Again, separate piece, you could remove it, but I'm not going to do that. But something which is super impressive is everything is sculpted with such attention to detail. Looking at the Union Jack and then the clip, but then as I said earlier, he has his combat knife, but moving that combat knife, he has this logo here, which I believe is something which Tony Roberts actually chose himself. I forget exactly what it meant, but this is something which is unique to the actual person. That's really cool that they've kept that in there. And jumping across quickly, you must have noticed by now the inkwork on his sleeve. Man, take a look at that. They have really paid such attention to detail. Now, the real Tony Roberts does actually have a sleeve on his right arm, so the fact that they've incorporated that, just absolutely fantastic. I'm really impressed with this figure. He's even got this communicator here on his jacket, and it goes all the way back. It's got this wire, and then he's got his comms on the back as well. The jacket is really nicely sculpted, this nice light olive green, so it matches the backpack. And then moving down, the sculpting on the fatigues is just next level. They've sculpted in all these pockets and all these creases, so it actually looks like cloth on a human. It doesn't look like it's just actually part of the figure. It looks like it's an addition to the actual figure, if that makes sense. It's done so well. Rolled up sleeves here, so the paint applications between the sleeve and the flesh, on point, absolutely on point. There's no overlay whatsoever. The flesh stops, the shirt starts. It's as simple as that, and that's how it should be. He also has a strap, it looks like a wristwatch on his left wrist there, and then another strap on his right. And then moving down, combat fatigues are just next level. Really well done. As I said earlier, all these creases, the seam line, the lot. They've even put these zippers in the sculpting. So well done. And something which I've also noticed straight away is the entire figure is completely pinless. There are no pins in this figure whatsoever, and I'll look closely at that once I get to the articulation. But for now, I'm going to quickly try and load him out with all his accessories. Look at that. That is just mwah, chef's kiss. What an awesome figure. The only thing I would say which I've noticed which is slightly disappointing, and I do mean slightly, is the backpack here just ever so slightly hindered by the comms. So when the backpack goes on, it doesn't sit quite flush. It's not a big deal, but it would have been nice to have a slimmer backpack. But while I'm on the backpack, something which I will mention, the peg hole and the actual peg are a perfect size. You really don't feel like it's just going to fall out. It fits in really nice and really snug. So overall, the figure so far is just exceptionally good. Let's take a quick look at the articulation. Okay, so before I take a look at the articulation, I will just point out that this figure out of the box was extremely stiff. Now, had I not researched beforehand, I could have risked breaking it. If you do get one of these figures, and I highly recommend that you do, blast it under the hairdryer or just run it under some hot water for a while. I have seen some other YouTubers recommend that, so I'm very glad that I did that beforehand. Now that he's been under the hairdryer, he is still quite stiff, but nowhere near as stiff as he was. So in terms of the articulation, starting at the head, he does have a peg at the neck. He does get a fair amount of up and not too much down because of the scarf, but he gets complete rotation. Nice butterfly joints here, and something which I'll say is in some of the figures, the cut here is just ever so unslightly. Here it's not too bad. I think it would have been nicer to have it a little bit more flush, but it's really not too bad. You get so much articulation with the butterfly joint. Complete bicep swivel as we've come to expect, double jointed elbow, and then forward and backwards on the peg for the wrist, and then full rotation as well. And as I mentioned earlier, you get heaps more hands, so just having those, it's really cool. But they all work the same way, they're all on those pegs. And then at the waist, he does have a cut just below, just below the breast line. You can't quite see it, so you can actually get some ab crunch from the top, and then also a fair amount back, and then he gets full rotation as well at the waist. And something else which is a plus, the way that they've done the cut here at the waist, it's actually it's I don't know how to describe it. It's not as unsightly as other figures. It doesn't just cut off. It has this very natural look to it. When you move them from side to side, it looks natural. It doesn't hang over like I've seen with some other figures. So again, huge plus there. In terms of the legs, he does have the drop down legs, but it's ever so slight. It's not as big as what I've come to see with some of the classified figures. And then there is a ball joint just underneath, so he gets a fair amount of up. And then he has a cut at the thigh, so he gets complete rotation. A double jointed knee. He is still a little bit stiff, but he does get a double jointed knee. He does have a double jointed knee there. He doesn't have a cut at the boot, but I guess you don't really need it because he has it at the thigh. And then he has a rocker at the ankle. So articulation is just excellent. Really well done. so my final thoughts on the Action Force Desert Rat. Man, what a fantastic figure. Truly impressed with this one. Fantastic articulation, huge attention to detail, not just with the sculpting, but the paint application. And those accessories. What's not to like about additional hands and a stand with a 1/12 scale figure? I even like the packaging. If I had to pick something I didn't like, and this really is a nitpick, it's that backpack doesn't quite sit flush on his back, but it really isn't a big deal. If you had any doubts about dipping your toe in the Valaverse pond, then don't delay. You won't be disappointed. Grab one of these figures and let me know what you think. If you like this content, then please do consider subscribing. Until next time, take care.